Hello, everybody. So I wanted to share my experience with this new EcoFlow Ultra Pro setup that I've recently installed over the last couple months. Wanted to share my experience, some thoughts with it. So I've been doing solar for about 12 years on a couple different houses and whatnot. And I would use forklift batteries, and you'll all know or have a version of, your inverter. So I used Outback, couple transfer switches to make it happen automatically, your combiner box, sub panel and whatnot, all the wire and space and just convoluted setup that it could be, right, to get it working. And then this system comes along and just look how nice and clean this is. It's just so clean. The inverter is obviously here at 7,200 watts, more than a residential house would need, right? 30 amps or so. Double that up, more than a typical residential house would need. You got your transfer switch up here, along with all your sub panel breakers, right? All in one unit versus the lot more equipment that I've thinned out over the years. Plus a generator hookup, all nice and clean and combined, and you can see it on the app to control it. Each individual breaker, see what each individual breaker is doing. It's fantastic. And on my setup, I did a 100 amp feeder. All my primary circuits are moved over here, all what I would consider primary for the house. The only things I didn't move would be the air conditioner, the range, the microwave, and the hood. Everything else is over here because those systems, the oven and microwave and the air conditioner, I just would consider a primary circuit and wanting on battery power if need be. Although I could turn it off in each individual circuit if I wanted, but it just wasn't worth doing for me. And I filled up so much that I only had one more panel left here, and these can only be every three can only be 60 amps. And of course, one circuit is nowhere near even that. So super easy and clean setup. Just look how clean all this is. And then in a normal setup, you're tying your batteries together with all the cables. Look how this is put together with just battery to battery right here. Super clean, no exposed terminals, all nice and tight. This might look like a little bit of a mess, but anyone that's been doing systems as normal up to now, this is nothing because it gets way more complicated than this. Super simple. The panels come straight through some safety switches on the outside, right? The rapid shutdown and whatnot, into some breakers here, appropriately rated. Comes out, high voltage on this side, straight from the panels. High voltage here, the lower voltage here. And that's it. It's straight from the panel into the unit. There's no microconverters to add on to the system that can go bad and whatnot. I used the Tygo optimizers so that I could have visual into what my system is doing. So here's it currently running for the panels. Currently bringing in 4 kilowatts. So each panel has that. And then you can see that the inverter is bringing in 4 kilowatts and I'm only using 1. Talk about overproducing with only 14 panels. And as far as actual input, my high voltage side, 330. And the low voltage side, 82 volts at 12 amps. I mean, look at the amperage that's coming. I'm not using anywhere near that going out. And it's really good input. Straight from the panels, nothing in between. And I am only using on the grid right now a whole 178 watts of energy on the grid at the moment. And I know that because I use the Empora system to latch onto the wires and see what each individual circuit is doing. And then I have it tied on to the mains of the incoming panel as well. So I know all the power that the house is using and then my each individual circuit here. But look how nice and clean that is. About 37 inches high here right now. It'll be a little bit taller once I get all the batteries on there. And I could easily fit 2 of these. This is kind of a landscape. If I went portrait kind of a view in setup, I could easily fit 2 of these in here. and I wired everything in a pair so that I could easily add the second one, because I totally intend on putting another set in here at this rate. But super simple, and all I have for panels is 14 panels out here. I have 8 425s up top and 6 250s on the shed. And the shed can pivot from facing south like it is here and face straight up to make it more efficient in the summertime. But that's all I have for panels. 14 panels, all each in parallel series to only match the rated input for the inverter, so that even if something happened, it will never overpower the inverter, just as a safety measure, right? Super simple to do that as well. I did this because you always get the salesman at the door wanting to sell you these $60,000 setups on your house. And having been doing this, you know, you can read them pretty quick. And for $60,000, that's a lot of equipment when they want to sell a inverter to a homeowner that's 15K, 20, 25K, when an average house only pulls maybe 2 or 3K at any given time for its own use, sometimes more or less, depending on what you have running, right? So 7,200 watts is going to be more than enough in most cases. You can always double it and even triple it. With these, you can add a couple more, right? How fantastic is that? It's modular. So if you're on a budget, you don't have to fork out a 25-year loan at whatever interest, no matter what it is, to something that's never going to be worth that, right? They're putting 40 panels on your roof to backfeed the grid. So when the political winds change, you don't get any money back out of it. And if the power goes out, you're done. There's no power. And the worst example I ever got was, oh, you can use the grid as a battery. Well, what is a battery? It's on-demand portable storage. If I'm backfeeding to the grid and the grid goes down, is that really a battery? So I excused them fairly quickly with that remark from them. So banking what you produce, using what you're bringing in on demand, and storing the rest for when you need it. And with one battery this is a 2-story, 3,600 square foot house, it would give me about 5-ish hours after sunset. And I added 2 more batteries just yesterday, and I almost made it an entire night. I got within 3 hours of about 1.2 kilowatt being used for the duration of the night. And I got to about within 3 hours of sunlight before the battery dropped to my set cutoff point of 12%. And then it switched seamlessly over to the grid. And then once these 3 batteries, once they started charging this morning and it got to 30%, it automatically kicked off of grid and kicked right back on the battery, and you never notice it, right? The clocks don't flash. It's just that fast. So at 30% with the 3 batteries, it kicked over and started working only on the solar. So the house was self-sufficient at about 9 o'clock this morning. It was fantastic. When I had 1 battery, it was at 40%, it would switch over. But now that I have 3 batteries, I don't know what the ratio that they're using is, but at 30% this morning, it went from grid and switched itself over to self-powered solar mode. So absolutely fantastic. But look how nice and compact this is. Easily fit 2 of them in your standard residential neighborhood, right? And it gets rid of all of the clutter that all this other charge controller and inverters and multiples and transfer switches have to be set up as, and just takes up all that room. Look how compact this is. I can fit 2 of them here in about 45 inches left to right. Fairly unlimited, right? But you can only go, vertically, but you can only go 5 high, which is fine. 30 kilowatts. Right now I'm at 18, but 30, that would definitely last the house overnight till the next sunny day. Absolutely fantastic. And it is super easy to use, super clean. Put in your sub panel, right? Move your circuits over, bring your solar panels directly through your safety equipment, of course, and into the inverter. Plug the inverter into your house, because that's now your house portal. And super simple, and you have all of the controls on there. And I couldn't find much in the way of the system being used. So it gives you these kind of stats. And there's improvements to be made, but if you swipe over, you can see all of your circuits. There you go. You can see how much your circuits are using each individual one. So super fantastic that way, and keeping track of what the house is doing, and just what's consuming your power and whatnot. But I wanted to share my experience because when I saw this, I was all in at first sight. Super fantastic system. Thanks.